Welcome to Healthy Connections. I'm your host, Tobias Pugsley, and with me today is some very special guests. We've recently learned that there are only over 856 cases of mumps reported in Arkansas. Today, to talk about those topics, I brought in some special guests, Stephanie Free and Stacey Ferretti, to talk about the mumps and flu shots. So stay tuned. We got an exciting show right after this word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Healthy Connections. Again, I got two amazing guests today talking about the Arkansas mumps outbreak. Now, the last data that I had said 856, but Stephanie, how many mumps cases are we actually seeing in the state of Arkansas now?
They've actually increased that to 1,028 cases.
Absolutely incredible.
Yes.
So what is causing this outbreak of mumps?
So it actually started from a person that traveled from Iowa to Arkansas. And it's just been gradually increasing, about 175 cases a week at this point. They're seeing the spread mainly out in northwest Arkansas, and then here in the last week or so they actually reported some cases in Pulaski County.
It's incredible. Anything in Baxter County yet that they're seeing?
Not yet. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I mean, we hear it's coming this way, so.
Yeah, we're definitely preparing ourselves. We're trying to increase our screening on our electronic medical record so that if a patient comes in with the signs and symptoms of mumps, that we're automatically placing them in the necessary isolation and doing the necessary testing so that we can get them, keep them from spreading it to other people.
Right. So, knowing that it's coming this way, what, you know, especially with my children and stuff, what are some early warning signs for mumps maybe that I should pay special attention to?
So the classic symptom for mumps is the puffy cheeks and swelling of the jaw. And of course other symptoms may be slight fever, tiredness, headache, muscle aches, and loss of appetite.
Wow. I definitely don't have a loss of appetite, so maybe I'm safe. That's the cases grow. That's just an astronomical rate every week. And what about maybe parents that had taken that alternate route and not vaccinated their kids? Anything there? I mean, they're probably the ones I would assume that are more at risk.
Right. Yeah, they definitely need to be looking for those signs and symptoms, and if all we can do is really strongly encourage them to vaccinate any children who have not had their vaccines. You know, the majority of the cases that we're seeing are coming from the children who have not been vaccinated. So
really?
Yes.
That was going to be my next question, because, you know, there was that whole movement there for a little while where people really started to consider whether or not to vaccinate their kids or not, and I was wondering if anything like this would ever come into play. Specifically, you know, now that we're seeing this movement of mumps across the Arkansas. Now, I'm assuming it's U.S. too. I mean, it's all over the U.S.
Yes. Yeah. This has been the largest outbreak that we've seen in the United States, though, since 2010.
Wow.
Yep. And the kids who have not been vaccinated, the Arkansas Department of Health is actually recommending that they stay out of the school for 26 days from their last exposure, or as long as the outbreak lasts, whichever is longer. So these kids have not been attending school for quite some time now.
Oh, wow. So they actually are moving them from the school system.
Right, since
Yes.
August to the end of August is when it started.
Wow. That's something to really kind of think about as a parent, you know, that you have that choice to vaccinate your child or not, knowing that they're going to be removed from school. You know, in the case of an outbreak, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean,
Almost
I feel like
the
that's
whole school year.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and who knows how long this outbreak could last?
Right. It's only going to
potentially.
get worse before it gets better. That's for sure.
Right. So, Stephanie, tell us some of the other things that you deal with as infection. I'm going to butcher this. Preventionist.
Yes. So a big part of what I do is look at healthcare-associated infections and work on processes to help improve those throughout the facility, and then also work with the Arkansas Department of Health on reportable diseases so that they can monitor those and track those in the community. And then work with mumps or Ebola or MERS or anything that might emerge its ugly head. There's always something coming up next down the pipeline, working to make sure that the facility is prepared and that the staff are prepared to handle those cases and try to prevent them from spreading in our facility. So
That is a pretty monumental task
Yes.
to have to be.
Yes.
But it's probably nice for our viewers at home to know that, you know, we're constantly looking at those things. We're constantly staying on the edge of what's coming our way and what we can do to take precautionary measures to prevent some of these things. So that's incredible. You have a very interesting job.
Yes, there's always something new. It's very challenging.
Well, is there anything else that our viewers at home should know about the mumps outbreak that maybe I didn't ask?
The biggest thing that we're trying to emphasize now is, just like we had mentioned before, just making sure that your children are vaccinated. The CDC has done numerous studies that it does not cause autism. A lot of people are fearful that the MMR vaccine can cause autism. And if your child has not been immunized or has been immunized, to be sure and look out for those symptoms and to seek treatment and get testing right away so that we can prevent the spread.
And probably adults too. Adults need to know if they're immunized as well, like look through baby books or get with the Department of Health and see if they can find a shot record, because there have been a number of adults as well now that this outbreak has happened that have been exposed and have had the mumps.
Wow. So if let's say that I realize that, do I call the Department of Health? Do I call the hospital? Who should I call?
Probably the Department of Health is the part where I would start, or your doctor's office. If they give you any vaccinations, I would look there as well.
And they can at least get me pointed in the right direction.
Right.
Excellent. Well, I think this will really help, kind of limit the outbreak, hopefully here in Baxter County. And it's nice to know that we're not affected yet, but it's kind of scary to think that it's on its way here. And,
Yeah, it could be.
And I'm glad that you're able to tell our listeners at home kind of, some of the symptoms and things to look for. I think that's really important. And I really appreciate you helping educate people out there on what to look for. So
Sure. Thank you for having us.
yeah, of course. So we'll be back here in just a minute, and we'll be talking about flu shots and the importance of flu shots for not only us as adults, but for our children as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Connections. Again, Stephanie and Stacey are my guests today. We've talked a little bit about the mumps, but now I've asked them more specifically about the hot topic of flu shots right now. We're seeing them pop up, and with our general physicians, we're seeing it in Walgreens. Everybody's pushing this idea of the flu shot. So what are your thoughts? Do you think, should everybody get a flu shot?
In my opinion, yes. Everyone should get a flu shot that can. Of course, they're recommended for anyone over the age of 6 months. And they're especially recommended for anyone who is immunocompromised, who has chronic health conditions, if anyone's pregnant, and of course young children are likely to spread it to each other more so than anyone else. And so those are the most recommended groups to get the flu shot, but it is definitely recommended for everyone. So.
The young and the old.
The young and
Are there
the
special
old.
shots for kids under a certain age, or a special dosage, or everybody gets the same thing?
6 months to 3 years is a pediatric dose, and then after 3 years is just a regular adult dose.
So the parents with children that young, they should probably do that through their pediatrician, I would assume, or
yes.
their family doctor. Okay, excellent. So are there any negative side effects to potentially getting the flu shot? Anything that I should look out for?
The only typical side effects you'll get from the flu shot are just the redness and swelling where the vaccine was given, and then you could potentially have just a mild fever from that, a low grade 99.5 or lower usually from the flu shot.
So if I get my kid's flu shot done and he comes on and has a mild fever, I shouldn't freak out necessarily.
No, shouldn't be too concerned.
Give it,
Yeah.
a day or two to kind of level out, and
Yeah.
then if there's still something there, then maybe take them in.
Yes.
Yep. What about, I know some of the schools now are giving flu shots to the children, and you're recommending that go ahead and let them get their shots with all their classmates. And
Yes, for sure.
and
Right, the Department of Health is going into every school and setting that up, and kids actually tend to do better with their peers more than their parents, so that's probably a good idea to get that done there.
yeah, I know it's tough anytime a kid has to get a shot. It's not a job I would want, but it's good for them,
Right.
If have you seen any early indicators, any early warnings about this year's flu season?
No, right now it's been too early to really tell.
Right.
I think we've just seen one case in the hospital so far this flu season, so it's still really early.
Well, it's been so warm, flu, I guess, typically kind of hinges on that change in the weather, and we've been really fortunate to have such great weather that
Yes. And last year we had a really mild flu season as well because the weather kind of held up, and it was really late last year. So I'm kind of anticipating, since we haven't seen any cases or many cases yet, that it'll be a late season again.
Yeah. If I have any other, mild diseases or anything, is there anything else specifically I need to watch out for flu that would pair with flu that could really, maybe send me on a downward spiral if I wasn't cautious? Maybe urge them to get a flu shot specifically because they have,
Yeah, I mean, it's usually actually recommended when you have, certain health conditions to get the flu shot, because if you were to get the flu, it actually could be more detrimental for you. So, and the flu shot is not going to, it may not necessarily prevent you from getting the flu, but even if you got the flu, it's going to lessen the severity of the flu. The majority of the deaths that we see every flu season come from those who did not receive the flu vaccine. So,
really? Mm-hmm. So it is making a big difference. 'Cause I know the old stereotype was, well, that flu shot's only going to save me from a certain type of flu, and there's all these other type of flus out there, and that's not necessarily the case anymore as much.
No, and it's kind of hit and miss. Every year they try to pick the vaccines or the strains that are going around that they think the vaccine will be effective against, but they're not always effective every year. Last year was a really good match, but the flu shots that they have out there, there's two different kinds called trivalent and quadrivalent. And so with the trivalent flu vaccine, you'll get protection against 3 strains of flu, 2 A's and 1 B, and then the quadrivalent flu vaccine gives you protection against 4 strains of flu, 2 A's and 2 B's.
Wow.
So
you're kind of covered most of the way around now.
that's right. And like I said, even if it's not the circulating strains that are going around that are in the vaccine, that vaccine will still offer you some protection and usually make the flu less severe. So.
Yeah, even if it lessened it, to a couple of days as opposed to being down for an entire week.
Yes.
For adults and children, nobody likes to feel sick.
No, it's awful. The flu is awful.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you think our viewers need to know about flu shots specifically?
I guess the only other thing that I would add was the common myth that the flu shot will cause the flu.
I was going to say that as well, yes. It does not give you the flu.
Yeah.
It is a dead virus.
I've heard that more than once.
Oh, I hear it every day.
Yeah, and a lot of times what happens is it takes 2 weeks to build immunity from the flu shot. Sometimes you'll get exposed to the flu in that 2 weeks that you've not had the full immunity yet, and you could get the flu. And I think that's a lot of times what happens, that people think the shot gave them the flu. Or you'll get the mild, you could get the low-grade fever and people think that that's the flu, but it's not. It's impossible to get the flu from the flu vaccine.
Because the mild symptoms are actually an immune response, which is a good thing when you're getting a vaccine. You want some kind of immune response from it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So we should probably get our flu shots earlier and not as close to flu season, so that it has time to build up that immunity.
That's right.
Because I'm one of the guilty ones that have not yet got my flu shot. I missed the rotation.
Right. You'll be coming to see me.
But I will be coming to see Stacey very soon.
You're on my radar now.
Because I do know the importance, and me and my family have always gotten flu shots. It's kind of a precautionary thing, and it seems to help. In college, I didn't get flu shots, and then there was a few times I got really, really sick, and so definitely it's making a difference.
Well, and you never want to be the one to give your loved one the flu either.
Never.
I mean, that's not fun.
Especially, with older grandparents now. I mean, they're the ones that, could potentially be more affected by a flu virus, so to speak, that have really, really serious implications.
Yeah.
You're right. You don't want to be that grandchild that brought the flu over.
And there are some, circumstances where somebody is allergic to the flu components or eggs, they have an anaphylactic reaction, so you want to be able to protect them too. If they can't have the flu vaccine, anybody that's around them needs to be protected as well, so they don't pass it around.
Right. Keep it contained.
Right.
Yeah, and another scary fact I like to share about the flu is that you can actually spread the flu to other people one day before you start showing symptoms. So that's how contagious it is. And you could say, okay, well, now I'm sick, I'm staying home. Well, you were actually spreading it to your loved ones and to other people that prior day before you even knew you had it.
A whole day before. Mm-hmm. Wow. If people only knew. If people only knew. Because, if you don't know the day before, then
right.
And I think about the schools, that poor little ones, they're
Right.
always
Oh, spreading the
They're
germs.
always with
Spreading the
people.
germs.
Yes.
the germ circus, if you
factory.
will. Yes.
Yeah.
And if they're contagious the day before, I mean, that's why we have the the flu whenever it goes through the school. I'm assuming it's usually you see 7, 8, 9, 10 kids out at once because
Right.
of,
Right.
if they're spreading it before they even know they got it, then
Mm-hmm.
it can go through that place pretty quickly.
Yes.
And anywhere there's large groups of people.
Right. Nursing homes.
Yeah.
You know, any place like that.
Excellent. Well, from the Baxter Regional standpoint, most of our employees do receive flu shots, correct?
Yes.
I'm assuming since we're the ones around the sicker patients a lot of the
Right.
times, it's probably very safe for us to do so.
Yeah. Caregivers need to be definitely vaccinated with the flu. They don't want to give it to their patients, and we want to keep it confined. We want to take care of them. We don't want to cause them to have the care.
Right. We don't want to be the ones that spread it all.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being guests today on the show. We've learned a lot of really, really great things. We've learned about vaccinations, and we've learned the importance of getting flu shots for yourself and your loved ones. So with that, we're going to wrap things up, and we appreciate you watching, and we will see you next week.